education and learning. Throughout history, we see people of warriors who inspired their nations, inspired generations and generations after them, people of honor and values. And on other side, we see people, again, warriors and fighters, but they have become an example of wickedness, brutality, lack of honor and ethics. Someone becomes a hero, respected by nations and generations after generations throughout history, become role models and leaders, and others become a source for cursing nations after nations and generations after generations. Curse them because they were wicked, they committed atrocities and crimes. So today I would like to talk about what makes a warrior of honor and values and faith, and another one, an example of brutality and lack of moral values. And especially the story of heroes of values and honor versus people of killing and murdering. It is inspired by a very powerful statement from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Hussein, in his course of standing for justice and honor, offered many statements, beautiful statements that history kept for us, and including this statement. He was basically defending his camp, and then at the moment he fell from his horse, fallen on the ground. The enemy saw him falling, so they surrounded him, and at the same time they attacked his own camp. They attacked the women, they attacked the children. He raised his voice and said to the soldiers of the opposite camp, إن لم يكن دين ولم تكونوا تخافوا المعاد فكونوا أحرارا في دنياكم. If you do not have a faith, if you do not believe in any faith, and if you do not believe in the day of judgment, where God will judge people on their deeds, then at least be people of honor. Be people of honor, because attacking women and children is rejected in every faith. No faith would recommend that, but if you do not believe in any faith, no human values and principles would allow anyone to attack women and children and civilians. A very powerful statement from Imam Hussein. Actually, this leads us in a very deep discussion about a topic in theology, which is called Husn and Qubh. What is good and what is wrong or evil. Husn and Qubh is beyond faith. You do not have to have a faith to say dishonesty is bad. If you ask anyone, what is dishonesty? Is it good or bad? If they have common sense, they will say dishonesty is. Honesty is good or bad, they would say. So this is a very deep theological discussion. And a point of agreement, even within Muslims, whether good and bad is defined by faith or by a global understanding, human understanding. In fact, Imam Hussein says, this is a statement. It means that honor, ethics, human values are beyond faith. People within the faith community and people outside the faith community may deal with things in honor and ethics. And the opposite is true. People within the faith community and outside the faith community sometimes may deal with things with lack of honor and ethics. And this is the story of the history. People of honor, values, principles, who stood for their values and for their principles, and those who lack morals and ethics. So what does make someone a warrior of honor and ethics versus someone who lack honor and morality? Of course, fighting does not mean always using arms or weapons. People fight every single day with variety of ways. You may fight ignorance. You may fight injustice. You may fight discrimination. It doesn't mean that you use a military approach. Military approach is a narrow and limited approach to reaching your goals. So fighting in general, it's your attempt and your best in approaching certain goals. Fighting for most people of honor is not an option. It is something imposed on them. They don't wake up one morning and they say, you know what, today we have these many options and we are going to choose the fighting. No, it's something that has been imposed on them. There is no other way out of it. And this is why they have to fight. It's not an option. They have to fight. The other option would be surrendering. Surrendering to the conditions or surrendering to what others, especially the evildoers, would ask. And people of honor would not surrender, because this is against their honor. Either they stand and fight and will, or they may die with honor. They may die with honor. People who lack honor are, at the other side. So people imagine people who fight, even in a military aspect, is not because they love to use violence. No, because fighting came to them. Violence came to them, so they defend. And in the course of history, let's say Gandhi in India, Nelson Mandela in South Africa, Dr. King in United States when they fought for their civil rights. Fighting for their rights was not an option. That was something imposed on them, and they had to stand and defend. This is what I mean by choosing to fight is something that was imposed, but they would not surrender. Since it came to them, they would stand for it. Umar al-Mukhtar, if you know Umar al-Mukhtar in Libya, he didn't go to Italy to fight Italian soldiers. He fought them in his own land because they invaded his land. So freedom fighters, warriors of honor, they do not love violence, but they stand for their values and they do not surrender. Other people, such as occupiers, tyrant, those who discriminate against others, they do have many choices, but yet they decide to use the language of force against their victims. Imagine a country would go and invade another country with no rights for them to invade another country. They have variety of options. People invade for variety of aims, for variety of goals. Could be expansion, could be oil, could be gold, could be expanding territories for any reason. People fight for a variety of reasons. But those who fight and they have option, usually they are not people of honor. Or people may fight for money. A lot of people, they are on a payroll, they mercenaries. They get paid and they fight. That's what they do for living. So one quality of warriors of honors is that they do not make a choice to stand and use violence because that's what they desire and love. And this is what Imam Hussein did. Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Hussein did not have a desire to use arms and fight. Not at all. Not at all. However, he said beautifully that the authority at that time, Yazid, did not leave him a choice. إن الداعي ابن الداعي قد ركز بين اثنتين. The tyrant has only offered two things. إما السلة وإما الذلة. Either fighting sword or to lose my honor, to compromise on my honor. Silla means the sword, or dhilla means to compromise and live a life without honor. And his response was, Hayhat minna dhilla. We are people who would never compromise on our honor. So this is one equality. For those people, fighting comes to them. They do not go to fighting. But when it comes, they say, we are ready for it. We prefer to die with honor rather than live with disgrace and lack of dignity and integrity. Warriors of honor do not compromise for personal gain. This is another quality of people of honor and warriors of honor. They do not compromise for their personal gain. This is one of the most important quality in those leaders. This is what makes them a leader. When the Prophet Muhammad started his ministry, people of Mecca, the pagans, came to him and told him, you want to be a king? We'll make you a king. We'll put a crown on your head, and we'll make you a king. You want money? We'll give you money. You want women? We'll give you the best ladies in the Arabian Peninsula. Just ask, what do you want? What do you want in return of stopping your ministry, abandoning your ministry? What do you want? You know his response. He said, if you put the sun on my right hand and the moon on my left hand to abandon this ministry, I won't do it. I won't do it. This is the example of the Prophet ﷺ has taught us. People of honor. Hussein could have stayed in Medina and enjoyed a very comfortable life. Many others in Medina, they actually opt to comfort. They decided to stay in Medina, enjoy the life in Medina, and say nothing. Hussein, that option was available for him to stay in Medina and say nothing and have a very comfortable life. But one thing he wouldn't have, a life with honor, a life with dignity and integrity. So he was ready to sacrifice for his dignity and integrity. And tonight and every year, everywhere, when Muslims commemorate the martyrdom of Hussein, they actually celebrate this God-giving gift of dignity and integrity, that we do not have to compromise on our honor and dignity and integrity. No force in the universe should force any human being to compromise on their dignity and integrity. And this is what Imam Hussein taught us. I remember a story about, again, Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela went to jail, to prison for 27 years in the most brutal prisons of the world, and most oppressive regimes in the world, the regime of apartheid. 27 years. He was a son of a chief in his tribe. Many times during these years, the government would come with a proposal to him. You know what, you are a chief. Let's give you a piece of land, a reservation in some rural areas. You become a chief for your own people. You have a self-governing, we are not going to interfere in the affairs of your tribe. You lead. He rejected. He said, no. I cannot compromise the value of the human dignity for black people and become a chief in a small rural area, in a village or so. Unfortunately, a lot of people do compromise. A lot of people do compromise. They compromise for personal gain. We've seen them. People who before being in charge, they raise a lot of slogans. You know, we are for the poor, we are for the weak, we are for those who going through injustice. Once they are in power, now they conquer. They bargain. They bargain. Forget those people. Let's make my pocket more wealthy. My bank account more choppy and with big numbers. We see them all the time. They compromise. They reach a point to bargain on the values of their faith and community and nation. People who lack honor, for them, everything on the table to negotiate. Yes, there is a price tag for everything. Some are cheap and some are very expensive. But there is a price tag for every single thing. You want this? My dignity? There is a price for it. You have to pay me for that. A man who had a troubling history at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. He has a story in Medina that I would like to share with you. He owned a tree in the middle of some Muslim home. The owner of that home was from Ansar. And somehow he owned the tree in the middle of that home. He would come at right time and many times at wrong times, and he'd say, I want to attend to my tree. The owner of the home told him, okay, you want to attend to your tree, maybe you want to water it, you want to make sure it's going fine. But, you are intruding on my privacy, on the privacy of my family. That's not right. You have to ask permission to come at a certain time so we are prepared. He said, no, I'm not doing that. So the man went to the Prophet and he complained. The Prophet called on that person, told him, you know what, you got to respect the privacy of this family. So at least tell them the time that you want to enter. He said, no, I'm free to enter anytime I want. He told him, okay, when you go, knock on the door and ask for permission. He said, no, that's my property. Nobody can prevent me in attending that tree. The Prophet told him, okay, I buy that tree from you. No, I'm not selling. How about I give you another tree for that tree? No. 2 trees? No. 3 trees? No. How about in heaven also I will give you more? No. The answer is no. The Prophet told that person, the owner of the home, there is a limit to do goodness. Our faith encourages us to do goodness all the time, but the goodness that people do not understand it in a wrong way. Sometimes you do goodness to some people and it turns to be evil, really. It turns to be evil. So nobody can teach the Prophet ﷺ how to do good to people, but this was an example. He kept saying no. Obviously, this becomes a source of trouble, a source of harm, a source of hardship. The Prophet told the owner, go and cut the tree and throw it in his face. And that's what happened. And at that time he said, La dharara wa la dharar. La dharara wa la dharar. In any rule, in any transaction, there should be no harm to people. There should be no harm to people. In any rule, any religious rules, fasting. Fasting is required, but when fasting is not good for the health, then of course the faith does not require us to fast. We can make it up later. So in the faith, there is no hardship. This is where comes the rule, the supreme rule of no hardship. That I in any transaction, not only in the rules of the faith, in any transaction, there should be a basic common sense with which both parties should benefit, or all parties should benefit. All right? Win-win. There should be no harm to someone. La darara wa la darar. The same person who refused to sell his tree, at the time of Muawiyah called him, said, come, I'd like you to come. You are they call you the Sahaba of the Prophet, the companion of the Prophet. I want you. He said there is a verse in the Quran that says there are people who are willing to sell their faith and sell the Jannah for a price. I want you to go to the pulpit and say this verse came after an evil act of Ali alayhi salam. Someone who is willing to sell his faith. This man said, okay, no problem, I'll do that. How much you gonna pay me? He said, I'd pay you 100,000 dinar. He said, not enough. 200,000 dinar, not enough. Now he's bargaining. He didn't want to bargain with the Prophet, but now he's bargaining. This is not my story. This is mentioned in a lot of sources of hadith. $300,000 dinar. No, Muhammad said, this is too much money. He said, yeah, I know it's too much money, but in losing my akhirah and losing heaven is still nothing. How about 400,000 dinar? He said, okay, I will do it. He went and he said, I heard the Prophet that this verse came actually because of an act of disgrace that Ali ibn Abi Talib has committed. For some people, everything is for negotiation. Everything is on the table, it has a price tag. You offer your price, you'll get what you want. For some people, there is no negotiation. There are things off the negotiation, off the table. We cannot negotiate on that regardless. And one of these things, brothers and sisters, are the human dignity, human honor and dignity. Another principle of people of honor is that in their course of seeking justice and standing for justice and standing for their rights, they do not transgress on others. This is, I believe, the most difficult and challenging conduct and the behavior of a man of honor. One of the most difficult things to do in the conduct of a man of honor. Not to transgress on others when he or she has the ability to do so. And a lot of people do fail this challenge. I've seen a lot of people who, in the course of a very right things, in the course of defending their rights, they commit a lot of evil works. We've seen them. We've seen them. A lot of people who've been victims of atrocities, when they become in power, they themselves become oppressors. We see this today, everywhere. But the Quran forbids us. لا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم أن صدوكم عن المسجد الحرام أن تعتدوا. O you who believe, this is a command from Allah. Do not let the hatred of others toward you and their act preventing you from going to the sacred, attending to the sacred mosque. Do not let this lead you in a transgression, in committing injustice to others. Another verse, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا. Muslims went through a lot of persecution before migration. All Muslims went through a lot of persecution before, torture, even death, losing home, losing a property, losing loved ones. And then one day they became in power. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned them not to make the same mistakes. Do not let hatred, because they hated you, and sometimes you should not respond to a mistake with another mistake. You have to be on the path of justice. Truly, this is the most challenging aspect in the life of an individual or a community, a person of honor. We've seen what happened after 9/11. 9/11 was a huge crime. But we have seen how Muslims had to pay, had to be persecuted just because some of those who claim to be Muslims committed these atrocities. We've seen victims in many countries today in the Middle East who've been victims of tyrants. When they become in power, they committed more crimes. That people said, you know what? May God bless that previous tyrant. We want him back. We've seen people who, in the course of seeking freedom against tyrant, when they become in charge, they actually cut the other person's heart and they put it in their mouth. It's on YouTube, you may see it. This is what is forbidden in our faith. And if you read the history of the Prophet ﷺ, the Imams, all Imams, this is something that not tolerated at all. But it really needs a lot of spiritual power. That when you become in charge, you forget about the past. You start a new chapter in your life, so you do not wrong others. It really needs a very powerful spiritual power to stay on this path. The Prophet ﷺ, he overcome the pagans. He went to Mecca. The day he arrived in Mecca, conquering Mecca, people of Mecca were fearing. This man, we persecuted him, we killed him, we fought him, we killed his uncle, we killed a lot of his followers, confiscated their properties. Now he's in charge. We don't know what's gonna happen. He asked them, what do you think I'm gonna treat you with? He said, you are a generous man and a descent of a generous people. He said, go, I forgive you. I pardon you. He did not treat a mistake with another mistake. Same with Imam Ali alayhi salam. You know the story of the man who hit Imam Ali with the sword. And Imam Ali lived for 3 days after he became an injury. He said, before you bring me food, you have to take him food. And the same food you give to me, you have to give to... No, the same food you, Hassan, my son, the same food you eat, you have to give to this man. And never seek revenge. If I live, I know how to deal with him. If I don't, you do not seek. You may seek justice, but also you have the opportunity to forgive. In the course of fighting with Muawiyah in Siffin, unfortunately, a very sad history. Muawiyah waged a war against Imam Ali alayhi salam called Siffin, the War of Siffin. While the Imam was the righteous Khalifa, Muawiyah was the governor of Syria. Muawiyah marched toward Iraq. He arrived at the river of Euphrates, Furat. He arrived first. So he decided to ban the water from the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam. No water. If they want to fight, they have to fight. They have to find their way to the water. No water. We're not going to give you water. People said water is something available for everyone. You should not prevent humans, neither animals, from water. They said no. Water are not available to you. Literally, the army of Imam Ali fought their way to the river. They actually took over the river, so the army of Muawiyah were defeated at a certain stage. Now the army of Muawiyah wants water. They became thirsty and they wanted water. Imam Ali said, give them water. Give them water. We cannot ban water from people. Give them water. This is the difference of people of honor and people of lack of honor, lack of morality. Same with Hussein alayhi salam. Hussein arrived in an area between Karbala and Kufa early the month of Muharram, maybe the 2nd or the 3rd of the month of Muharram. So the governor of Kufa sent an army of 1,000 soldiers watching for Hussein to arrive in the middle of the desert. They ran out of the water. 1,000 soldiers ran out of water. Until Imam Hussein came, they met one another. Now, the army of the governor of Kufa said, we have to take you as captives to Kufa. He's telling Hussein. Hussein said, I'm not going to come to Kufa. There was an argument, a little bit of confrontation, not a military one, but maybe with hands. But Hussein noticed that the commander, his name was Hur, the commander and his army are thirsty, and he has some supplies of water. He told his people, give them water. Give them water, though they are thirsty. And they even give their horses water. When they arrived in Karbala, the army of the governor of Kufa, they said no water. They banned the camp of Imam Hussein, including children. children for 4 days, no water, in the heat of Karbala. So this is, in fact, this is what makes someone fight for honor, with honor, and someone who lacks honor. And finally, I would like to conclude with this story of the son of Imam Hussein, Zayn al-Abidin. Zayn al-Abidin was very young in Karbala, and he was very sick, and he survived the battle. But he saw in his eyes how his father was killed, his brothers, his cousins, his nephews, uncles. It was a huge atrocity for him and for his sisters and others, ladies in the camp. He went back to Medina. They went back to Medina. In the next year, you know, Yazid, the Khalifa who at his time Imam Hussein was killed. The first year, he killed Imam Hussein in Mecca, in Karbala. The second year, he actually attacked Medina. He attacked Medina, killed a lot of Sahaba, a lot of innocent people in Medina. And his third year, he attacked Mecca. He burned, literally, he burned the Grand Mosque. 3 atrocities in the 3 years. The 4th year, he died. He did not survive. He was young. He died at the age of, I guess, 32 or 33. The next year, they attacked Medina, and Zayn al-Abidin was in Medina. One of the things they did, all women, only Zayn al-Abidin was still young, they actually robbed all the homes of Medina, including the home of Zayn al-Abidin. They robbed everything. And then they said, all women in one room, you even give us your own clothes. Your own clothes, the clothes on your body, you give it to us. A soldier actually took the clothes of women. He said, when I touched them, I felt they are warm, because they just took them off from the body of the family of Imam Hussein and the family of Ali, the son of Imam Hussein. 4 years later or 5 years later, people of Medina actually rebelled against the dynasty of Umayyah. They rebelled, and they actually took the governor, representative of the Khalifa, as a prisoner. So the whole Medina rebelled. The governor, his name is Ismail. The people of Medina put him in a cage in the street and told people, you know, if you wanna see a governor who was unjust to you, doing wrong to you, hurting you, now this is the time that you come and seek justice. People would come and maybe hit him or do like curse him or this and that. But he used to tell people with him, you know, I am fearing Ali, the son of Hussein, because that was the most family that we hurt more than others. Until after a few days, he saw Zayn al-Abidin coming toward him. He said, that's it, he either going to kill me or he's going to ask his people to kill me. Zayn al-Abidin came and told him, you know what I came for? He said, probably you came to seek revenge. He said, no, I came to come and ask you what you need at this moment. If you need help, if you need anything. He said, well, maybe I am guilty, but my family and the ladies are not guilty at all. If you can find, they have been sleeping on the street for a few days now. He said, don't worry, I'll take them to my home. He took the family of the person who robbed him just a few years ago to their home. This actually what brothers and sisters distinguish people of honor with people of immorality. And this fight goes on and on. And when we remember these stories of brothers and sisters, it doesn't matter how you want to implement them. It's not about a military fight, or it's not about a revolution. It's about day-to-day life. The way you go do your shopping, the way you treat your family, the way you work, the way you treat your neighbor. Always put in your mind that we treat people with honor. Another inspiring story. Maybe this takes another 2-3 minutes. Possibly you have seen the movie The Lion of the Desert. This was early 80s. I remember early 80s, The Lion of the Desert. It's about a freedom fighter. His name is Omar al-Mukhtar, a Libyan freedom fighter. I saw this movie in early 80s, actually directed by the late Mustafa al-Aqad, the same director who produced The Message, if you're the movie about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend that you go and see this movie. Very inspiring. Italians under Mussolini invaded Libya. They invaded Libya and they started killing. Italians were associating with the Nazis, with Hitler at that time, so they invaded Libya. The freedom fighter in Libya was Omar al-Mukhtar, an old man, maybe in his late 70s. Very honorable man, would fight with honor. He did not go and invade Italy. They came to invade his. When Italians take captives, freedom fighters, Libyan freedom fighters, they would kill them. And in one incident, Libyans took some Italian soldiers as captives. They actually took them by surprise, and they took them as captives. One of them may be an officer. Now Omar al-Mukhtar is there. This is a beautiful movie. And all the soldiers waiting for Omar to say, kill these Italians. And they were ready to kill them. One followers of Omar says, we have to kill them. Omar said, no, we do not kill prisoners. The man says, but they do this to us. When they capture our men, they kill them. They do this to us. He says, we don't take those people as teachers. We don't learn from them. We are people of honor. We do not learn from the wicked, those inferior in morality and conduct and behavior. And the story of Imam Hussein is to stand for morality, for the highest standards of ethics, not to compromise and not to accept and pay allegiance to corruption and live with honor. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah wa ala al-arwah allati hallat bifina'ik. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. السلام على الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. I would like to conclude with reciting Fatiha, and after me I would like to ask a brother